You protect yourself.
She doesn't trust me because she would screw me if she could. That's what I believe. Okay, and I'll be honest, I've thought about screwing her. Okay, so I'm being honest, but I won't. My wife with a conscience won't let me. Well, I'd like to be able to be part of Savanah's life, but it's like they're in this collusion that seems to hate Robyn, and I don't know why.
Savanah Brown reached one of those milestones Cody once built his identity around. Graduation should have meant proud parents, crowded pictures, and one giant family celebration. Cody attended the ceremony and took photos with his daughter. Then came the private party. He wasn't invited. That should be the whole story. It isn't. Because one detail refuses to fit neatly. If Cody could attend Savanah's graduation, why couldn't he fit inside the celebration afterward? And why does Logan Brown suddenly matter when there is no solid proof he personally blocked Cody from anything? That is where this gets uncomfortable. The strongest version of this story isn't a physical showdown. It is quieter than that. It is a father discovering that nobody needed to throw him out. The family had already learned how to keep moving without him. Think about that difference. Being absent from a ceremony can look like neglect. Being absent from the party afterward reveals something else. It reveals who still belongs naturally inside the family circle. Cody was at the graduation. That matters. It tells us Savanah had not erased him from the milestone itself. Their relationship was not completely severed. He showed up, he stood there, and he shared that public moment with her. But the private celebration creates the mystery. Why could the father attend the official event, but not the family gathering? That question matters because Sister Wives was built around the opposite image. The Browns wanted every big moment to feel bigger because they were plural. More parents, more siblings, more people standing around one child when life mattered. Graduations were supposed to prove the system worked. Weddings were supposed to prove it. Holidays were supposed to prove it. The whole family mission depended on one idea. However complicated the marriages became, the family would remain one family. Savanah grew up inside that promise. She is the youngest child Cody shares with Janelle. By the time she graduated high school, that promise had already been tested almost beyond recognition. Christine had left. Janelle and Cody were separated. Meri and Cody were finally admitting their marriage was over. Robyn remained Cody's only wife, and Coyote Pass looked nothing like the dream it once represented. Remember what that land was supposed to mean. One future, one property, one family still connected after all the moving. The Browns left Las Vegas believing Flagstaff could become something better. Instead, Coyote Pass became a symbol of delay. Plans changed. Money became complicated. Relationships cracked. The homes never appeared. The family kept changing anyway. That is the first clue in Savanah's story. And notice what makes that clue strange. The public moment still included Cody. The private moment did not. Usually, you would expect the opposite when a relationship is fragile. A formal ceremony can be easier to skip. A family party can feel more personal. Here, the pattern flipped. Cody could stand in the graduation crowd. He could take the photo. He could mark the milestone. But the smaller gathering exposed a different level of access. That is the missing piece. The ceremony showed that contact still existed. The party showed that comfort did not automatically come with it. Keep that distinction in mind. It will matter again when Cody explains why he felt pushed outside the family. Because his explanation focuses on who rejected whom. The guest list points toward a deeper question. Who still felt safe together? That question is harder to answer with one villain. The adults kept talking about structures, property, loyalty, and marriage. Meanwhile, the children were growing beyond all of it. They built careers. They got married. They moved away. They created homes of their own. Most importantly, they started deciding which relationships actually traveled with them into adulthood. And Savanah's relationship with Cody became strangely revealing because it did not appear completely broken. Janelle has described Cody still spending some time with Savanah. He might take her out. They could enjoy a visit. Then another gap could follow. That sounds ordinary until you listen closely. Savanah seemed to understand the pattern. Dad appears. They have a good time. Then Dad may disappear again. No explosion. No dramatic speech. Just lowered expectations. That may be the most emotional part of this entire story. A child does not always reject an inconsistent parent with anger. Sometimes the child simply adapts. They stop expecting the relationship to become something it has not been. That kind of adjustment can look calm from the outside. Inside a family, it changes everything. Because once you stop waiting, the power of disappointment starts shrinking. And that brings us to Savanah's brothers. Janelle has said Savanah looked at her older brothers as father figures. She also discussed the idea of having her brothers walk her down the aisle someday. That is not a small detail. Walking someone down the aisle is symbolic. It says this person stood beside me long before this moment arrived. It reflects trust, history, and who feels dependable when the room is full. We do not know what Savanah will choose someday. No future wedding decision should be treated like a settled fact. But the idea itself tells you something important. Her mind had already moved toward her brothers. And Logan is the oldest brother in that network. He is also Cody's oldest child. That alone changes how you read the story. Longtime viewers met Logan when he was already carrying responsibility. He often looked steady while the household around him felt chaotic. He helped with younger siblings. He seemed comfortable taking on practical tasks. He rarely needed to be the loudest person in the room. Then he grew up and made an important choice. He stepped back. Logan did not build his adult identity around sister-wives conflict. He married Michelle Petty and kept much of his private life away from the family spotlight. That makes his presence more interesting, not less. He does not need a public attack on Cody. He does not need a dramatic confessional. He does not need to announce himself as Savanah's protector. His history already explains why people notice him. And there is one old Brown family moment that makes that history almost impossible to ignore. Think back to the commitment ceremony. The family created a mission statement. They gathered everyone together. They planted a tree as a symbol of unity. It was one of the clearest moments where the Browns tried to define themselves publicly. And Logan spoke to the parents on behalf of the children. That image looked simple then. It looks different now. At that ceremony, the parents were the structure. Cody and the 4 marriages were supposed to hold everything together. The children grew around that center. Logan's role pointed upward. He represented the kids while thanking the adults. Years later, the marriages broke apart. The wives built separate lives. The children became adults. Yet many sibling relationships survived the collapse of the structure that created them. That is the first major reversal. The system weakened. The sibling bonds did not automatically weaken with it. Logan does not have to replace Cody. He represents a connection that kept working when Cody's old position stopped working the same way. And Savanah's graduation party made that visible. But there is another detail that keeps this from becoming a simple story about Cody being rejected everywhere. Cody attended Logan's wedding. Logan married Michelle in 2022 when Brown family relationships were already strained. Cody was there with Robyn. That matters more than it first appears, because it proves fractured relationships do not always prevent shared milestones. Families do this all the time. People can sit in the same room while carrying old resentment. They can keep their distance. They can stay polite for one important day. They can show up because the event belongs to someone they love. Logan's wedding showed that possibility. The Browns could still gather while the old family structure was coming apart. Then came Savanah's graduation party. This time, Cody was not invited. So what changed? That question is more useful than any imaginary confrontation. If Logan alone had decided Cody could not attend, the problem would have a clean shape. One angry son, one rejected father, one obvious conflict. But Janelle has described something far bigger. She said Cody had become alienated from roughly 90 to 95% of his children. That number lands differently when you remember Cody's old identity. He was the father of 18, the size of the family used to prove abundance. Now a percentage measures distance. And you cannot fix that distance by confronting one child. If Logan were the only problem, Cody could focus on Logan. If Janelle were the only problem, he could focus on Janelle. If Christine were the only problem, he could blame the divorce. But several strained relationships create something else. A pattern. Different memories. Different injuries. Different boundaries. Different expectations. No single conversation can reset all of them. That is where Cody's own explanation becomes important. From his perspective, Robyn appears central to the split. Cody has described feeling like the rest of the family created a separate group. He seemed to believe he and Robyn were being pushed outside it. He even suggested that being welcomed back might require leaving Robyn behind. That tells you how he sees the conflict. Not as 18 separate relationships. As sides. His side. Their side. Robyn beside him. The rest of the family somewhere else. And once you see the situation that way, every invitation becomes loaded. It is no longer just a party. It becomes a loyalty test. Imagine how that might feel from Cody's perspective. If he believes the family wants him without Robyn, attending alone could feel like surrender. It could feel like agreeing his marriage is the problem. It might also feel like betraying the wife who stayed. That helps explain why loyalty keeps returning in Cody's language. Who stayed loyal? Who challenged him? Who respected him? Who left? Who sided with whom? But Janelle's response creates a problem that Cody cannot solve by defending Robyn. She said leaving Robyn home would not suddenly make Cody welcome. Sit with that. Now follow the contradiction carefully. Cody seems to believe Robyn explains the distance. Janelle says removing Robyn would not solve the distance. Both views cannot fully explain the same guest list. So what evidence fits better? Look at the pattern around the children. Several relationships had already become strained before Savanah's party. The family could still gather around birthdays, weddings, and graduations. But Cody's access was becoming less automatic. That points away from one isolated dispute. It points toward accumulated history. And accumulated history creates a different kind of problem. You cannot solve it by winning one argument about Robyn. You cannot solve it by proving Christine was unfair. You cannot solve it by getting one invitation restored. You have to deal with the pattern itself. That is why this party works almost like evidence. It does not tell us every private reason behind the decision. It shows us the condition of the relationships when the decision was made. And that condition was already bad enough for Cody to be outside the celebration. Because if Janelle is right, Robyn is not the main lock on the door. Cody's relationships with the children are. And those relationships are much harder to repair. You can defend your wife in one conversation. You cannot repair years of distance with several adult children in one conversation. Each child may need something different. One may want an apology. Another may want steady contact. Another may want Cody to listen without correcting their memory. Someone else may want space. Savanah may simply want consistency. That is the real challenge. Cody seems to want one explanation for a family problem with many layers. That is understandable. One explanation feels manageable. If Robyn is the problem, Cody knows what he is defending. If Christine turned everyone against him, he knows who to blame. If Janelle controlled the guest list, he knows who excluded him. But what if nobody controls the whole thing? What if each adult child made their own choice? Then there is no single enemy. There are consequences. And Sister Wives has always been full of consequences that arrive years after the original decision. Think about Coyote Pass again. The property started as a promise. The Browns imagined homes, family nearby, children returning, and grandchildren visiting. It was supposed to prove the move to Flagstaff led somewhere. Instead, the property became another source of tension. Plans shifted. Money mattered. Relationships weakened. The shared future disappeared. The land stayed. That contradiction is important. Coyote Pass became the physical version of a broken promise. Savanah's party is the emotional version. The old promise said Cody would naturally stand inside every major family milestone. The new reality said his presence was no longer automatic. That is why the guest list matters. Not because invitations are magical. Because invitations reveal current relationships. And this is where the Logan angle changes completely. At first, Logan shut Cody out sounds like an action. You imagine a confrontation. You imagine Logan drawing a line. You imagine Cody being told he cannot enter. But there is no solid public proof of that scene. And the real situation may be more painful. What if Logan never needed to say anything? What if nobody needed to stand at the door? What if the family simply built a celebration that no longer included Kody? That is the turning point. Because you can fight a person. You can argue with a decision. You can challenge a rule. But how do you fight becoming unnecessary? That is harder. Picture the difference without inventing a scene. There does not need to be a slammed door. There does not need to be someone standing guard. The powerful image is much simpler. An empty place. Not because the event failed. Because the event still worked. That is what makes absence visible. If a gathering collapses without one person, that person still controls the room. If everyone adjusts and continues, the room has already changed. You can almost measure Kody's changing role through that contrast. Earlier seasons asked which house he would visit. Later family events ask whether he will be invited at all. That is a huge shift. And Logan sits right beside that shift without needing to cause it. The oldest son does not need to become the new patriarch. He only needs to remain connected to the people who trust him. That is much harder for Kody to argue against. And that is where Logan becomes symbolic. He is the oldest Brown child. He shares the history. He knows the younger siblings. He lived through the moves, the marriages, the chaos, and the public family image. That shared history cannot be recreated with one emotional speech. Savanah already looked toward her brothers for support. That is the real shield, not a physical wall. A family network. Logan, the other brothers, Janelle, Christine, the siblings who still connect across different mothers. People who can gather without waiting for Kody to organize the room. No one has to push Kody away physically. Those relationships already create stability without him at the center. And that may be the hardest thing for him to face. Kody can still be Savanah's father, but he does not automatically remain the center of her support system. Those are different roles. Being the father is permanent. Being needed is not. For years, Kody's position gave him power inside the family structure. For wives wanted time with him. Children waited for him. Schedules revolved around him. Homes revolved around his movement. Even arguments often revolved around where Kody would be. The structure made him important every day. Then the marriages ended. Christine stopped waiting for his schedule. Janelle stopped building her future around his plans. Meri stopped waiting for a relationship Kody had already left emotionally. The adult children stopped living under the same roof. Suddenly, Kody's importance could not come from the structure anymore. It had to come from relationships. That is harder. A title gives you position. A relationship needs effort. And Savanah's situation shows the difference clearly. Kody could still call her. He could still take her out. They could still have good moments. But if those moments happened only sometimes, Savanah had to build daily life around people who were there more often. That does not make her cruel. It makes her practical. Children eventually stop measuring parents by promises. They measure patterns. Who calls? Who checks in? Who remembers? Who appears when nothing dramatic is happening? Who stays consistent after the big moment ends? That is where trust grows. And that may explain why Savanah's brothers became so important. They did not need to compete with Kody. They simply needed to be there. That is powerful because Kody has often talked about respect and loyalty. But adult children usually judge relationships through something more basic. Presence. You can demand respect. You cannot demand dependence. Once dependence moves somewhere else, getting it back takes time. Look at Savanah's reported attitude toward Kody. She seemed to understand the pattern. Dad appears. They spend time together. Then another gap may follow. That sounds almost casual. Underneath it is a huge emotional adjustment. She stopped making Kody's inconsistency the center of her life. From her side, that may feel peaceful. From Kody's side, it may feel like rejection. That contrast matters. Sometimes independence feels like abandonment to the person losing influence. That does not mean Kody is intentionally trying to control Savanah. It means his old family role depended on people needing him more than they do now. And you can see that shift across the Brown family. Christine left and built a new marriage with David Woolley. She did not just end one relationship. She created a life where Kody no longer shaped her daily future. Janelle moved toward a life centered on her children and grandchildren. Her plans stopped depending on whether Kody would finally build on Coyote Pass. Meri also stopped organizing her emotional future around Kody. The children made similar moves. They married, they moved, they built careers, they created homes. They decided which relationships deserved space in those new lives. That is where Kody's future with the family will be decided. Not in one giant family meeting, not around one table, not through one apology that fixes everyone. Each relationship stands alone now. And that creates another problem with Kody's idea that the family became a club. A club has rules. A club has a door. A club can vote you back in. A fractured family does not work like that. There may be 18 different doors. One child may welcome him. Another may stay distant. Another may accept phone calls but avoid holidays. Another may want more effort. Someone else may want nothing for a while. That is messy, but it is real. And that messiness is exactly what makes Savanah's party important. Kody attended the ceremony. That tells you the father-daughter relationship was not completely broken. Kody missed the party. That tells you his place inside the wider family group had changed. Both facts matter. If you say he missed Savanah's entire graduation, you exaggerate what happened. If you only say he attended, you miss the emotional conflict. He was there. Then he was not. That gap tells the story. Presence and belonging had become two separate things. And that may describe Kody's situation with several adult children. He can still appear as their father. That does not mean he automatically fits into every family space. Adult children decide that for themselves. That becomes especially powerful when you remember how little choice they had growing up. The children did not choose the move to Las Vegas. They did not choose the move to Flagstaff. They did not choose Coyote Pass. They did not choose Kody's schedule. They did not choose how the marriages changed. They lived inside adult decisions. Now they are adults. And adults choose invitations. They choose holidays. They choose weddings. They choose phone calls. They choose who stands beside them. They choose how much access a parent receives. That is where the power moved. And if you have followed Sister Wives since the early seasons, that reversal is huge. Kody once moved between homes because everyone waited for him. Now family events can happen without asking where Kody will be. That does not mean the family hates him. Love and dependence are different things. You can love your father and stop waiting for him. You can miss him and still set limits. You can enjoy one dinner and avoid building your life around him. Savanah's situation seems to live inside that gray area. That is what makes it believable. It is also why turning Logan into a dramatic hero would miss the point. There is no need to invent Logan yelling at Kody. There is no need to imagine threats. There is no need to create a fake showdown. Logan's strength in this story is quieter. He has history with Savanah. He has sibling trust. He has years of shared experience. And he does not need public drama to prove any of that. Sometimes family loyalty looks boring. That is what makes it strong. You show up. You stay steady. You do not make every event about yourself. You keep being there after the big moment ends. That kind of loyalty rarely creates a television explosion, but it builds trust. And that raises an uncomfortable question for Kody. What earns loyalty from an adult child? Is it being the father? Is it expecting the old family structure to matter forever? Or is it repeated presence? Kody has talked often about loyalty. Savanah's situation asks whether loyalty can survive without consistency. That is a different question. And it does not have an easy answer. Now look at the party through Janelle's eyes. Her youngest child is graduating. The older kids have difficult relationships with Kody. Janelle's own marriage to him is over. Christine remains close to the family. Savanah deserves a celebration that does not become another adult fight. We cannot know every private conversation behind the guest list. But we know enough to understand the bigger issue. Janelle did not believe Kody naturally fit into that gathering. That is a boundary. And boundaries can feel brutal when someone once had automatic access. Janelle's change matters here. For years, she tolerated uncertainty. She valued independence, but she also stayed committed to the plural family idea. She waited on Coyote Pass. She kept hoping the family could build something stable. She worked around Cody's schedule. She believed the larger family still mattered. By Savanah's graduation, that version of Janelle had changed. She no longer needed to protect the image of one united Brown family. That freedom changes the story. She could plan around the relationships that actually existed, not the relationships everyone wished still existed. That is one of the biggest changes after the marriages ended. The Browns used to perform unity because unity was part of their public mission. Their commitment ceremony captured that perfectly. The mission statement, the family tree, the speeches, the photographs. Everyone standing together. They wanted people to see one family. After the breakups, nobody needed to keep proving that image. Janelle could stop forcing people into the same room. Christine could build a separate life. The children could choose who felt safe. Cody could still be invited sometimes. But the invitation was no longer automatic. That is why Savanah's party feels different from the early seasons. No one needed the giant family photo. No one needed Cody in the center. No one needed to pretend every relationship still worked. The celebration could belong to Savanah. And strangely, that may be why Cody's absence feels even louder. No one had to announce that the family changed. The guest list did it. The people who showed up did it. The people who kept supporting Savanah did it. Sometimes family shifts happen quietly. Then one milestone exposes everything. That is what happened here. And now the phrase family showdown means something different. A showdown does not always require two people yelling. Sometimes two versions of a family exist at the same time. Cody's version still seems tied to the old structure. He remains the father. He remains married to Robyn. He seems to believe those relationships should still carry weight. The adult children's version looks different. They have their own households, their own marriages, their own boundaries, their own relationships with their mothers, their own relationships with each other. Those two versions can clash without anyone raising their voice. Cody sees exclusion. The others may see independence. Cody sees a club. The others may see people choosing peace. Cody sees loyalty breaking. The children may see trust needing to be earned. That is the actual showdown. Old authority versus adult choice. And adult choice usually wins. Because Cody cannot order his adult children back into the old family system. He cannot decide every invitation. He cannot choose how often they call. He cannot decide who walks Savanah down the aisle someday. Those choices belong to them now. That loss of control does not automatically make Cody a victim. It also does not mean his pain is fake. Imagine spending decades believing you built one huge family. Then you watch that family keep gathering without you. That would hurt. It could feel unfair. It might feel like people erased everything you did. But pain does not prove your explanation is correct. That is the key. Cody can genuinely feel rejected. Janelle can genuinely believe the boundary is necessary. Savanah can still love her father. Logan can matter deeply without confronting anyone. All of those things can be true at once. That is why the simplest villain story does not work here. The situation is more painful because nobody gets an easy answer. Cody's biggest problem is not one invitation. It is the pattern behind the invitation. A father can miss one party and repair that. A father can apologize for one mistake. A father can explain one misunderstanding. But years of inconsistent relationships require something else. Time, effort, patience, humility, repeated action. That is much harder than winning an argument. And it may be especially hard for Cody because repair does not guarantee restoration. That point matters. Even if Cody rebuilt a stronger relationship with Savanah, he might not return to the same role. Even if she forgave old disappointments, she might still rely heavily on her brothers. Even if Cody attended every future milestone, the family might never return to the old hierarchy. Repair can create something new. It cannot always recreate what existed before. That may be the hardest truth in this entire story. Cody may be focused on getting back into the family circle, but the old circle is gone. There is no single Brown family structure waiting for him to return. There are separate households, separate traditions, separate relationships. Different people stay connected in different ways. Christine and Janelle still share family ties. The siblings still see each other as siblings. Grandchildren connect people whose marriages no longer connect them. Cody remains part of that history. But history alone does not decide the future. Current relationships do. That is why Savanah's graduation party becomes such a clear snapshot. The father attended the ceremony. The father missed the party. The siblings remained part of her support system. The celebration continued. Simple facts. Huge meaning. 3 details now line up. First, Cody still had enough connection to attend the graduation ceremony. Second, the private party happened without him. Third, Savanah already saw her brothers as major support figures. Put those together and the story becomes sharper. Cody was not completely gone. He was becoming less central. That is a much more uncomfortable position because it offers no dramatic moment to fix. There is no single door to reopen. There is no single apology that restores everything. There is only a question about what happens next. If Cody keeps showing up inconsistently, the newer family pattern becomes stronger. If he becomes steady, some relationships may soften. But even successful repair would happen inside a family that has already changed shape. That is the consequence people miss when they focus only on the party. The guest list matters for one day. The new family structure could matter for decades. And that brings us back to Logan. Did Logan personally shut Cody out? There is no solid public evidence proving that. Did Logan's role help show why Cody's absence mattered? Yes. Because Logan represents something Cody cannot demand. A relationship built through shared life. Logan grew up with Savanah. He watched the family change. He shared the same moves, siblings, mothers, chaos, and public history. He became part of Savanah's support system without needing permission from Cody. That sibling bond exists on its own. And that is the part Cody cannot control. He can work on his relationship. He cannot control everyone else's relationships. If the brothers become stronger figures in Savanah's life, Cody cannot reverse that through an argument. If Janelle and Christine keep gathering the children, he cannot stop them. If adult siblings build traditions without him, he cannot declare those traditions meaningless. He can only decide what he does next. And that is where this story stops being about blame. The next move belongs to Cody. Not because every problem is his fault. Because he cannot control anyone else's choice. He can reach out. He can listen. He can show up. He can avoid turning every conversation into a fight over Robyn. He can stop treating every boundary like betrayal. He can ask each child what they need. Then he can respect the answer. That sounds simple. It is not. Because he may hear things he does not agree with. He may hear memories he remembers differently. He may hear anger. He may hear silence. He may hear boundaries he dislikes. Real repair means listening anyway. Then repeating the effort. One call. One visit. One kept promise. One ordinary moment. Again. And again. There is no applause for that. No big speech fixes everything. No family meeting resets 18 relationships. That is why real repair often looks boring. It happens between milestones. It happens when nobody is performing for the family image. It happens before anyone decides who gets invited. That is the part people miss. The invitation is usually the result, not the beginning. By the time someone is missing from a family event, the real story often started years earlier. That is what Savanah's party appears to show. The guest list did not create the distance. The distance shaped the guest list. And that distinction matters. Because if Cody only focuses on the invitation, he may miss the actual problem. Getting invited once will not fix the pattern. Being consistent might. And even then, the family may never look the same. Remember that old commitment ceremony tree. At first, it symbolized one family growing from one structure. Cody and the wives were supposed to be the center. The children grew around them. Years later, the meaning changed. The marriages broke. The center weakened. But the branches kept growing. Some branches stayed close. Some moved farther away. Some connected in ways the adults never planned. Logan is part of that. Savanah is part of that. The siblings who still gather are part of that. The family did not survive exactly as Cody imagined. But pieces of it survived anyway. That may be the deepest irony. Plural marriage was supposed to keep everyone connected. Instead, many relationships survived after the plural marriages ended. Christine and Janelle remained close. Their children still treated one another as family. Older siblings became support for younger siblings. Grandchildren created new family centers. The Browns did not disappear. They reorganized. And Cody is no longer guaranteed the central position in that new structure. That is why a physical confrontation would almost be easier for him. If Logan had thrown Cody out, Cody could point at Logan. If Janelle alone caused everything, Cody could point at Janelle. If Robyn were the only issue, Cody could point at how people treated Robyn. But when the family simply keeps moving without him, there is nobody to blame for the entire picture. There is only a new reality. And new realities can be harder than arguments. An argument says the relationship still matters enough to fight over. A quiet family gathering without you says people already adapted. That is what makes Savanah's party powerful. The room did not collapse because Cody was absent. Savanah still celebrated. Her family still surrounded her. The milestones still mattered. Life kept moving. That is the payoff hiding inside the headline. And this is where the original mystery finally closes. The strange part was never that Cody missed a party. The strange part was how little the celebration seemed to depend on him. That is the clue everything kept pointing toward. The ceremony proved contact. The party revealed distance. Logan's role revealed an alternate source of support. Janelle's explanation revealed that Robyn alone could not explain the split. Each piece answered one question and opened another, until the pattern became clear. Cody's problem was not one closed door. His problem was a family that had stopped treating his presence as automatic. And once that happens, titles matter less than behavior. Father, patriarch, husband, head of the family. None of those words can force closeness from adult children. Only the relationship can do that. That is why this story lands harder without an invented fight. A fight would last minutes. This shift has been building for years. Cody was not shut out because Logan became some dramatic family enforcer. The stronger story is simpler. Cody's old place was no longer automatic. That does not mean he lost Savanah forever. It does not mean every child feels the same. It does not mean repair is impossible. But it does mean the old rules no longer work. Being the father does not guarantee the invitation. Calling yourself the patriarch does not create trust. Demanding loyalty does not create closeness. Those things come from what happens between the big moments. And Savanah seems to have learned that already. She can enjoy time with Cody when he appears. She can keep living when he does not. She can love her father without waiting for him. She can rely on her brothers without turning that into a public attack. That may be the calmest part of this whole story. No grand revenge. No dramatic door slam. No invented showdown. Just a young woman reaching a milestone with trusted people around her. And a father discovering that the family no longer stops when he is not there. That is what makes Logan's role so strong. He does not have to take Cody's place. He only has to keep his own. A dependable brother. A shared history. A person Savanah can count on. That is enough. And maybe that is what Cody has struggled with most. You cannot demand to be needed. You can only become dependable enough that people choose you. That is a smaller kind of power. But it is the kind adult children actually control. So when you look back at Savanah's graduation, do not focus only on who is missing. Look at who stayed. Look at who Savanah trusted. Look at who kept the celebration moving. Then think about that old family tree again. That is why the quiet details matter more than the headline ever could in this family. They show who still feels connected when nobody is forcing everyone into the same room together. The trunk cracked. The branches kept growing. And somewhere along the way, Cody stopped being the only person holding them together.